Hello everybody, welcome to another weekly reading vlog. It is Sunday, start of a brand new week. It's going to be a good week. I'm expecting to get a lot of reading done this week. Book update. I am now starting on the second quarter of my 12 Tropes of 2020 challenge. I literally just uploaded that video about an hour ago. I am reading Ruby by Francesca and Carmen Staton, and it's really good so far. Ruby has now moved to LA. The parts where she shares about her abusive childhood are very raw and honest, and I really appreciate that about this character. There are sections in here that are italicized that I think are from the perspective of Orion, her soulmate. I'm theorizing about all of this based on what's written on the back, and I think they're going to meet halfway somewhere in there. Nothing too magic-y has happened yet. I'm excited to read more of this. I think it's going to go pretty quickly. My guess is I'm probably going to finish this by Wednesday because it is short. I'm only 3 chapters in and I'm already that far in the book. So I think this will move pretty quickly, which is good because I've got some big ones in terms of length coming for that challenge. And since I last left you, I am now just over halfway through Revolution by Jennifer Donnelly. This is so good. I expected to enjoy it because I love this plot of a modern day person finding a personal item, in this case a diary of someone who lived in the past, and their storylines moving parallel with each other. But this is so good. It's dark and emotional, and there's some conspiracy in there, there's some murders in here, there's the creepy catacombs of Paris in here, and it's so good so far. I still have a lot of questions about what's going to happen. I don't know what the outcome will be for either of these two characters. I sort of have, for Andy, who's the modern day character, I sort of have a wish or a hope for what I want to happen to her, but I don't have anything concrete yet. This is based on some French Revolution conspiracy, which is where Alexandrine's story takes place, isn't during the French Revolution. And I think that's probably, of historical fiction, my favorite kind, when it is based on a conspiracy theory or a what if, because I'm like, who knows if that happened or not? There's so much information that went missing throughout history that we know nothing about, and so those are the stories that tend to impress me most, and I think keep me on the edge of my seat because it's something new that I've never heard of, and I just love a good conspiracy. So I'm not a conspiracy theorist, nor do I buy into all conspiracies that I hear, but there are some that really fascinate me. I digress. That's my reading update. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is I am starting NaNoWriMo next month. If you don't know what that is, it is National Novel Writing Month. I'm really excited. I'm finally going to lay down a first draft. It's been something that I've been working on for 5 ever. However, because of the jobs that I work now, I know that I'm not going to have the time to finish that month of writing in my current schedule. And so I've spent today and the past couple days overhauling my schedule and crowding things out and making room and cutting things that don't necessarily need to be in my schedule, because, and I can't be the only person who struggles with this, if I abruptly change my schedule starting November 1st, go cold turkey, I'm gonna burn out within the first 5 days because I haven't adjusted to what that schedule is and I haven't perfected it. So I'm starting it now so that I can tweak it if I need to, and no harm done if I have to make any changes. So consistency is important, but I also know that cold turkey change does not compute with me well, if that makes sense. So I'm excited to do that. Plus it'll give me more time to actually spend writing as I'm working on this schedule, so that's good. I think those are all my updates. Yeah. We'll see you later. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday. Monday flew by. It was a very long day, but both Sunday and Monday, I did a lot of stuff and I was very tired. I did manage to get some reading done. I surprised myself, but I just didn't film an update most of it because I was so tired. I wanted to just give you an update while I have some spare time before lunch. Remember to drink water when you're busy. Stay hydrated. Okay, so I am just about halfway through Ruby. This took a turn. I don't really know how to explain what I'm feeling about it. I mean, it's fine, it reads really well, but magic has been introduced. Ruby has the knowing, but the way that they're explaining the knowing of her knowing who Orion is, it just sounds like she's a crazy obsessed fangirl. I don't know if that's actually accurate or whether that's my own interpretation, but she researched him and found out what he likes and basically transformed herself into a girl that she thinks he will go for. She flew to his hometown in England, hung out in restaurants he usually frequented. She's now friends with his mom, and I think it'll probably resolve, but right now it's just sounding like she's crazy obsessed and she's using magic as an excuse, but Orion's mom is also into magic. I don't know. I'm very confused, and this is a short book, so I don't know how it's gonna resolve. But I mean, it reads really well. The writing is beautiful, and it's definitely interesting to read the flashbacks, and I'm now getting more of who Orion is. So I don't know. I don't even know what to rate this book right now because I have too many questions about how this plot is going to end. I don't think I even really have any predictions as to how it's going to end, which doesn't happen very often to me. Usually I have a pretty good head for making educated guesses about what's going to happen at the end. Couldn't tell you. I am about 2/3 of the way through Revolution, chapter 45. Things are getting interesting. Andy has a crush in Paris, and Alexandrine has now been flipped to the other side and is now spying on the royal family. I'm not giving any spoilers other than that, just the big plot points. So I kind of anticipated that Andy was going to fall in love with the guy that she met. I did not call what was going to happen to Alexandrine, so I'm excited to see. I still really don't have a clear view of what's going to happen to either of them. I mentioned on Sunday that I had a sort of idea in mind that I wanted for Andy. I think it'd be really cool if her character arc switched in that way. I don't know if it'll happen or not, but it's really good. The chapters aren't really like a set size. Some of them are like 8 pages long. One chapter I read was like 2 pages. So sometimes when I'm reading, I feel like I'm not getting that much done. My guess is I will probably finish this by the end of the week, which is good because then I will have 2 weeks to read my cozy mysteries. I've no doubt I will finish all of those by the end of October because they read really quickly. So again, kind of like Ruby, I don't really know how this one's gonna end. So I'm excited. It's keeping me on my toes. So I mentioned on Sunday that I am participating in NaNoWriMo, which it takes place during the month of November, and October is affectionately known as PREPTOBER by many NaNoWriMo authors, where we figure out our story, our plot points, we set up our space, we iron out our schedule, which is why I mentioned on Sunday that I was trying to practice my NaNoWriMo schedule. I did not stick to it today. It is proving more difficult than I anticipated. Mostly the going to bed early enough so that I can get up early enough. I really struggle with going to bed early, so that's what I'm working on right now. Anyway, part of my research for setting my NaNoWriMo routine was to look up writing routines of other well-known authors and trying to implement their strategies, particularly authors who have other jobs. I work 2 other jobs that basically create a full-time job, plus I also teach piano, and so my free time is few and far between. And part of that is also dedicated to BookTube, so I wanted to look at routine strategies that would be beneficial. Part of the strategy for writing for a lot of authors that I was researching is that they write very early in the morning, which is how I've structured my schedule, but one piece of advice that I thought was interesting was reading short essays, or like short pieces of work. And it was mostly just to train your brain to write first in brevity so that you have a stable framework for you to flesh out and add to if you need to. And I thought that was such an interesting piece of advice to open yourself up to that type of writing. So when you're writing a draft, that's what you go with first, and you don't get bogged down in figuring out every little detail. And I think that's going to be incredibly beneficial for NaNoWriMo. So I dug through my stacks of books that I kept from college, and I pulled out The Art of the Personal Essay by Philip Lopate. I read this in college, not the whole thing, but I thought this would be really fun to read through again, and I forgot how much I loved this book. There's some gorgeous stuff in here, and it's all organized by genre or type. Right now I'm starting on the forerunners of the personal essay, and the first guy straight out the gate is Seneca. He's just, the way he writes is so terse and quippy and hilarious. There's some really funny lines in here. He was born around the same time as Jesus. That's how old he is. I think my favorite quote that I read about him was a literary critic called Macaulay, he said, Macaulay once complained that Seneca's works are made up of mottos. There is hardly a sentence which might not be quoted, but to read him straightforward is like dining on nothing but anchovy sauce. I was like, oh, what a review. My favorite quote from this whole essay is, there is no such thing as peaceful stillness, except where reason has lulled it to rest. Night does not remove our worries, it brings them to the surface. All it gives us is a change of anxieties. Men and birds together in full chorus will never break into our thinking when that thinking is good and has at last come to be of a sure and steady character. So all about how the noise in the brain affects how you're affected by noise in the outside world. And it was so interesting. It was so short, but I could talk about this forever because I love it so much. But I picked this book up again just to get a taste for reading brief essays, and maybe it will inspire writing more briefly when I'm laying down a rough draft. So I'm excited to read more of these. There's some really good people in here, good authors in here. Yeah. I've actually really wanted to read this all the way through for a long time, and I've just never gotten around to it. So I'm excited to jump back into another anthology, which I love a lot. So that's my reading update now. The phone is ringing. I'm gonna go have lunch, do a little bit more reading, and then I got a busy afternoon ahead. So I will update you later. Have a wonderful Tuesday, everybody. Hello everyone, welcome to Friday. It's been kind of a random week for reading, a reading vlog, because I haven't really had a consistent reading schedule this week. I didn't read at all on Wednesday, mostly because it was like Monday, filled with a lot of work stuff and didn't really have a lot of free time. And when I did, I didn't really want to read, mostly because I had a medical procedure that was done this week. It's just kind of been a year of that, of what else can we fix while we've popped the hood on Lee. A few weeks ago, I had a colonoscopy, and we discovered an issue, and so now I'm having what's called a capsule endoscopy in the first couple weeks of November, where it's basically just a pill camera that I swallow, and I have a little built thing that gets the pictures, and then I pass the camera out. That's the gross part. But before that can happen, I have to do what's called a patency capsule test, where I take like a capsule and I swallow it. This afternoon, I'm going to go get an x-ray to see if that has passed through, which then gets the okay to do the actual camera one. So, to do the prep for that, that was fun. Not as bad as the colonoscopy prep, but I drank a lot of Gatorade this week. Anyway, I had that done on Thursday, which is why I was in the hospital, and I'll get an x-ray today. So it's just kind of been a week of not feeling great. So today I was finally able to get some reading done, which is good, hence why I'm giving you an update. I'm so close to being done with Ruby. I've only got that much left. I want to see how many chapters I've actually got left. I've only got 8 chapters left in Ruby, so I'm definitely going to finish this one today. Just a word of warning that this book has big triggers for anyone who has ever experienced or witnessed child abuse. Ruby is abused by her father, and the depictions in here are relatively graphic. And it's always hard for me to read that material because I work with children. I have worked with children in the past who have had experiences like this, and I can have seen firsthand accounts of how damaging that can be to a child's psyche. But I appreciate characters like Ruby who are determined to make sure that their own lives do not carry on that sort of stereotype of abuse being passed on to generations and how they treat their children. She's very determined to make sure that does not happen to her. And I appreciate it. This book has completely surprised me. There's 7 or 8 chapters left, and I have no idea where it's going to end. She and Orion have finally had their first sort of real intimate encounter, and there's so many different ways that this book could end. And it's only, I don't even think it's 200 pages. 209 pages. So much has happened in this book already. I kind of want it to be over because I don't want to read about any more of the dark stuff, and it's making me mad. But I also want to know what happens to Ruby and the magic, and I don't think we've hit the climax of the story yet, so I'm almost equal parts curious and dreading how this book is gonna end. So, I'm definitely gonna finish that one today. I'm also mad at Andy and Virgil, who's her love interest in this book. Andy's the modern day girl in Revolution. Just some of the decisions she makes. We've had a break from Alexandrine for a while. That story is really intense. And there are parts in here, I forget how dark the Revolution was and how much grisly stuff happened to so many people. Like, I didn't even know, and they were writing in this, that some executions happened where they would just chain men, women, and children together and drown them in the Seine. And didn't know that happened, and I forget how dark of a time it was and how much loss of life there was. It's hard for me to justify that much loss of life, regardless of who they were, regardless of what they've done. Most of the people who died in the Revolution were innocents, and that's hard for me to wrap my mind around. I love this book. This book is so good, and I definitely think I'm going to rate it very highly, but I don't think it's one that I would ever pick up and read again just for fun. Unless I had a real hankering to read this again, just because it's such a dark topic and there's a lot of trauma and pain and insanity. Alexandrine is verging on going insane because of all of the horrors that she's witnessed. So both of them are very good. Both of them are also equal parts intriguing and traumatic. Neither of which I expected from either of these books. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, to finish Revolution by the end of tomorrow. I'm on page 319 out of 472, so I have roughly 150-ish pages. It's bad mental math. Left to go. So maybe I'll crank it out tonight. I doubt it, but I'm hoping to at least finish it by tomorrow so that I can start a few more new books for the Read My Everything on My Shelves challenge. And I think I'm making my decision now. I'm going to start the selection next by Keira Cass for my 12 Tropes challenge. And then I think I'm going to skip a few so that I can read Borage by Gil McKnight, which is a sort of witchy, spooky, dark fantasy book, which I think will be perfect for Halloween. So I'm not anticipating the selection taking very long to read. My guess is kind of like Ruby, I'm going to fly through it. I'm excited. So yeah, I definitely think October has been a better reading month than September, even though we're a little more than halfway through. We're not done with the month yet. Mostly because I've been working on having a better reading routine, and even if I don't always stick with it, it's nice to know that that routine is there. And I've also enjoyed having multiple books going at once, because I forgot how nice it was to be able to, at least for me, if I'm in a particular mood, pick up the book I want to read and then put it down and pick up a different book if I want to read that one later. I've always really enjoyed that. So I definitely feel better about the reading I've gotten done in October. With all the Preptober work that I've been doing for NaNoWriMo, I'm a little worried with whether I'm going to be able to keep up with the amount of reading next month. So that's kind of why I want to make sure that I at least stay on top of my 12 tropes, because that's the one that really has a more strict deadline, whereas I've adjusted the Read My Shelves to just see how many I can get read by the end of the year. There's no pressure on that one. So I'm doing my best to stay on track with the 12 tropes, maybe even read ahead a little bit. That would be really nice. We'll see how it goes. For now, I'm going to go get ready to drive to get my x-ray. I may show you a little bit more of me reading in the hospital, because that's been a consistent theme this month. And I think that's it. Yep. I will let you know how I get on with these books. Until then, I will see you all later. Well, I did it. I finished Ruby. I don't know how I feel about this book. It's unlike anything I've ever read, really. And it's hard for me to put the two worlds together of the very real trauma and seriousness of what happened to Ruby and her family during her childhood with an abusive father, to the magic that all of a sudden she is dealing with and experiencing. And I think this is going to have to be a book where I have to sit with it and think about it for a while after I'm done reading it to sort of decide my opinions on it. Yeah, I think this doesn't happen very often where I can't, like, articulate what I'm feeling or my thoughts about it. I have a few things that are rattling around up in here, and I'm not gonna share too much in the vlog because I want to save most of it for what I read in October. The ending was odd. I would not have picked that ending for this book. I don't know. Okay, I don't want to talk myself into a hole because I haven't given enough time to think about this yet. So I did finish it. I enjoyed parts of it, but I don't think I'm ready to fully share my thoughts about it yet. And I don't want to say something I'm going to have to change later. So I think I'm going to go make some dinner. I just finished filming my Friday video, which is actually going to go out on Saturday. And then I'm probably going to read a little bit more of Revolution and start the selection. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the evening. Been kind of an odd week, and I've read a lot of odd stuff. But magic, Halloween, it fits the theme. So, alrighty, I'll talk to you guys later. Hello everyone, welcome to Saturday. To get right to the point, I'm almost done with Revolution. I have just under 100 pages to go. I don't know what is happening right now. Andy, I'm pretty sure, is high out of her mind. And she was just at this party in the catacombs, and she met this guy who, it's pretty obvious, is from the past. The police showed up to bust the party. She ran away with this guy, and now she's in post-revolutionary France. This is not how I thought this book would end. I don't know. What a weird reading week it has been. I have no words. It's a no words week. So anyway, I'm going to film a little bit of me reading and just see what happens, because I want to capture this on camera of me witnessing what happens to Andy, because this is nuts. No. I just got so anxious / excited for what I think is gonna happen. Oh my gosh. Oh. This is too much. 80 pages to go. Oh, this is not how I thought this book would end. I need to take a break and I'll come back to it in a bit. Hello everyone, it is actually Sunday now. I just finished Revolution over my lunch break. I didn't quite get it done last night because it was just a lot. I had to put it down and get some sleep because it's a work day today, but I just finished it and the ending surprised me. I did not expect that ending from this book. I was incredibly caught off guard by what happened, and ultimately I think it was a good ending. Within the first 5 chapters, I immediately fell in love with Andy as a character. I think she was incredibly real, and she had suffered such trauma that the extremism of her life, I think, made perfect sense to me, especially given the complexity of her home situation. And then when Alexandrine, the other character, was introduced, again, I was completely caught up in who she was as a character and incredibly impressed by her wherewithal and strength, and I think the two characters paralleled each other very nicely. Over the years, I have come to discover that I appreciate books that actually have wholesome real life endings, and by that I mean that the consequences of their actions are actually what is the ending of the book, because that's what happens in real life. And while I rooted so hard for both of these characters to get what they wanted and for their dreams to be fulfilled, that isn't what happened necessarily. The end of their story had to do with the consequences of their actions throughout the book. And while it's bittersweet, I think it was probably the most appropriate ending for this story, even if it wasn't what I would have wished for either of those characters. I didn't expect to glean as much meaning from Revolution like that as I was anticipating. But I think I can also say the same thing about Ruby, because I never really expressed my thoughts about Ruby either, because both of these books were so heavily emotional that I think I still need a little bit more time to let those calm down before I put together a review. That's the kind of stuff I love to see. Very real conclusions to stories, but characters making smart decisions to change their lives for the better. And I think both of these books really highlighted that. Both of them were so much darker than I was anticipating. This was a dark content week. I'm definitely gonna rate Revolution highly. I am still not quite sure about my review of Ruby. I have some more technical formatting questions about the actual writing of the book. The story was great. So you'll have to check out my What I Read in October video for more of my reviews on those. Yesterday, however, I did start The Selection by Keira Cass, and I was correct in thinking that it was going to read quite a lot like Ali Condi's Matched trilogy. I read the first one and half of the second. I think they were audiobooks because they were free on Audible, but it reminds me quite a lot of that, and I have a feeling, I think I've mentioned this before, that it probably is also going to be a little bit like Princess Academy. We'll see. But I'm enjoying it so far, and it's definitely a much lighter read, which I appreciate. Take a break from the dark and heavy. So that's it. That's the end of another weekly reading vlog. I loved everything that I read this week, and I'm excited to go home and pick up some cozy murder mysteries just in time for Halloween. So thank you for joining me for another weekly reading vlog. If you would, please like this video and subscribe. I've got some fun things coming out in the end of October. I really enjoy doing these weekly reading vlogs. One, because it holds me accountable, but two, because I really like documenting my thoughts after finishing a book. Sometimes after you wait a while, you forget sometimes what happened or your emotions when reading a book. I like having a documented series of my thoughts on books. So I hope you enjoy them too. For now, I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next time.